Hi, I'm Pat Kaiser, Director of the University of Tennessee Center for Native Grasslands Management. Today I'm here in beautiful Monroe County, Tennessee, visiting with Kenny Hamilton on his farm, and we're going to have a conversation with him a little bit about his experience growing switchgrass as a forage for his cattle operation. Kenny, can you start off just telling us a little bit about your operation, whether you're a cow-calf guy, stocker guy, how long you've been in the cattle business?
We're stockers and been in the cattle business about all my life, one way or another. Had cow-calf, but now we're
moved into stockers.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And here at your home place farm, or the farm we're at, you tell me you've got about 20 some acres of switchgrass?
22 acres,
22 acres. How did you first get into switchgrass? What got you started planting it and growing it?
Well, I used to manage the Stokely company, and we put in 350 acres for biofuels. So I thought I'd try it too, and that didn't last but 3 or 4 years, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had it, so I wanted to do something with it, and we found out we could get good summer gains on stockers with it.
Yeah. So what got you interested in using it as forage? I mean, you said you had it anyway. Had you heard about it maybe being a forage option, or maybe you just looked at it and said, hey, that's grass, let's try it?
Yeah, I just tried it.
Try it and see what the heck happens.
I tried it on the Stokely farm too, because in the early years we had weed competition, or we had Johnson grass.
Perfect.
And so I just flash graze it, turn the cows in, and let them eat it down and take them out.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my weed control for a while, where I had fences.
Yeah, and it worked pretty well, didn't it?
Yeah. If I didn't have fences, I had to bush hog it.
Right. A whole lot better to graze and bush hog.
Yeah.
Make some money.
When the biofuels played out, we grazed it, we hayed it, and we had a terrible time selling it because it had such a bad reputation, because some people had bought some that was grown for biofuels, and it was mature and it was worthless.
Right, no value.
So I started cutting it young and had pretty good hay, but this hay market's a hard thing to get into.
Right. So you fed some of that hay for your own cattle, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah.
And did you find, as long as you were cutting it when it was young and still vegetative,
yeah, it was
cattle
good.
taking it up and using it well? And because I hear the same thing, that people are critical of switchgrass hay, but to me it always goes back, when did you cut it? Right?
Yeah.
So how mature it is. And then, so you will put them on the switchgrass during what, May, June, and on into July?
Yeah.
And what's been your experience on that? Do you get good gain? Do the animals perform well?
Terrific gains, and they slick up, and they really look good when they leave here.
Yeah. And Kenny, you just motioned over your shoulder, but behind us is that switchgrass pasture. Kenny, you had shared with me that this winter you had used it kind of because it was about the only place it would hold up in this really wet winter that we had. How long were you on it? Pretty much October to May?
Just about all winter. It was, I really punished it. And I wished I hadn't, but you got to do what you got.
Yeah. It had to be somewhere. And the thing of it is with that, I don't know if you've ever tried to till any ground up that had switchgrass on it. Have you done that? Is it easy to till?
No.
Because you got a lot of root, right?
Right.
And I guess that's part of why it held up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and I know it seemed like it rained all winter, and so that's pretty good testimony to how well that'll hold over time. So if I said that you'd had that 10 years, that's about right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Tell me about your management during those 10 years. Have you fertilized it any?
Very little. I just got back a soil test, and it calls for 90 pounds of phosphorus. Potash is pretty good, and I attribute that to the grazing manure.
Right. What about nitrogen? Do you put nitrogen down every year, or not at all? Or
I did last year, and I haven't so far this year. But normally I hadn't been.
Okay. So out of those 10 years, you fertilized with nitrogen once or twice?
Yeah.
Okay. What about lime?
The lime was, the pH was 5.6, and they didn't recommend any lime for switchgrass.
Okay. So in that 10 years, nitrogen once or twice, no lime, no potash or phosphorus, other than maybe this year you might put some out.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cheap date.
Yeah.
That's pretty cheap date. What about weed control? Have you had to spray any?
Yeah. Yeah, I have.
How often have you had to spray? A couple of times?
Yeah, I've sprayed last year, and then this year I had a outbreak of buttercup, which is I
Like
kind
in
of
Tennessee.
overdone it through the winter, you know,
Yeah.
beat it up.
Most winters, what do you do with it? Do you graze the stubble? Do you plant anything in it, or just let it be?
I haven't been, but this year I think I'm gonna cut the hay or cut it off for biofuels because they've opened back up,
Okay.
and then I'm gonna try to sow it in a winter annual,
I got you.
maybe rye and
Right. Get a little bit extra grazing.
yeah.
Do you think it's higher in nutritional value than say other forages?
At that time of year, it is. It really is.
What time of year are you talking about?
From May to
Gotcha.
through July.
So you think the cattle obviously
Yeah.
like it a lot.
We're getting over 2 pound a day gain on it in the heat.
During those 10 years, I'm assuming there's been a good drought or two in there. Do you have any impressions on how it's held up during drought?
It's done real well.
Yeah.
Drought. I mean, it's the nearest drought plant I know of.
On the establishment, I've heard people say that it's pretty hard to establish, others not so much. Did you get your pasture established on the first crack at it, or did
Yeah.
you have to replant?
No, it come on good. I had an old hay van drill. And it's like got offset disc on it, and I turned the angle just a little and dropped the seed practically on the ground, and then it's got a chain drag that comes behind it, and it worked. It worked good.
Did you have a lot of weed pressure on your pasture the first year, or not so much?
A little. I had to bush hog it once.
One
Had
time.
to clip it, yeah.
But other than that, it just
No.
came on. For your management, are you putting a lot of animals in there and moving around with poly, or are you just throwing them in there for the duration? Are you?
Well, there'll be 80 head go in there at once, and I can't poly them off because of the shade. I don't have any shade.
Okay, so they pretty much have the run
Yeah.
of it for that 3-month period.
Yeah, and they got to be able to go to shade because that's the time of year I use it, is the hot time.
Right, right. So management, very simple. You open the gate in May, you stick in 80 head, you come back in July and get them. Is that
No, I'll take them off to another pasture.
periodically,
Yeah.
according to when the grass runs down?
Yeah.
And how many times during that 2 or 3 months do you come off there
I'll probably come off 3 times.
and then back on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if you graze it too low, it takes it too long to come back.
How low do you tend to try? Where's your cutoff point? When do you think I need to pull them?
12 inches.
Okay. Okay. Well, Kenny, if you had some new ground or some other ground that you had to put some grass on, would you consider switchgrass again? Are you satisfied enough with it that you do it again, or?
Yeah, I would. I haven't checked on the seed cost. I think it's come down to what it was.
It's come down a lot. Yeah. I think about $8 or $10 a pound compared to, it was about $20 a pound back then. So, what would you tell somebody just to sum up switchgrass? What's your overall impression?
If you sow it, you better have a fence around it.
Let me ask you this. Did you find it, because I've talked to different ones that have had this experience, and I know we did in our tests, the first year you went to graze it, did you stock it heavy enough?
No, I didn't. It got away from me.
It kind of educated you, didn't
Yeah.
it? Because it surprised us how heavy it would grow.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
And once it gets its growth, it can take a lot of cattle.
Yes. Yeah. So, well, very good. Well, Kenny, I sure do appreciate you taking a few minutes to visit with us and tell us about your experience. I guess a decade of grazing it. And
Yeah.
let me ask one last question. What's the best thing about it?
You got something for cattle to eat that's nutritious in the summertime.
In the summer. What's the worst thing about it?
I don't know. It's no good in the winter.
Well, everything's got its ups and downs. Hasn't it? It's
Yeah.
got its good and its bad. So, Well, listen, Kenny, I sure appreciate you visiting with us and taking a few minutes out of your day, and we're grateful for your pretty oak trees here. We can sit in the shade. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed listening to Kenny kind of talk about his experience. I know we've done a lot of research at UT, but I think it's always interesting to see how working farms are handling this opportunity, and again, we appreciate Kenny sharing his experience.